Okay, hi Esra. Nice to see you again. And would you like to introduce yourself and tell us who you are, just in a little nutshell, and what we're going to talk about today?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me, first of all. Um, yes, my name is Esra, and I don't even really know where to start with how to introduce myself. But I must say I have had kind of like an awakening experience some years ago in regards to my health and have gone through some hard phases in my life in regards to my physical health, which then transpired into me really going into a journey of learning about food and fasting and kind of like the food system that is now being very present in our society and how it's affecting our health as a collective. Um, and it really not only brought my attention onto just the health aspect, but then also our consciousness and how it interplays with what we experience in our reality. And I think it was I think as time went on, I really pursued like a better state of vitality, a better state of health. I really peeled back at the layers of my own conditioning and just really, it was in some way like whether I wanted to or not, I was really facing some fears head on, just in pursuit of the things that I wanted to bring forth and the visions that I wanted to realize in my reality. And even though there were some really rough patches in that and really difficult times, really, fear-based thinking, kind of shame-based thinking, involved in what I was experiencing in my reality, I'm really, really grateful for everything now when I look back. And I don't think I would change like a single piece in that puzzle that was really orchestrated for me because it's taught me so much and I gained so much insight from it. And sometimes we really need to go through those painful experiences to uncover like our true power. I really feel so. It's been great. I I guess like who I am or what I am right now is not really definable in that sense. So I'm just going with the flow, and I'm really happy to be here on your podcast and see where this takes us. I'm sure it'll open some very amazing doors for the both of us. So thank you for having me, Judith.
It's a pleasure.
Maybe you can introduce yourself as well. I'd love to,
Oh,
if anyone's
yeah.
watching my
Yes, that's
audience.
right. That's right. That's right. Yes, I'm Judith and I live in South Africa. And my spiritual awakening happened actually when I was younger, around 16. And then I was going back and forth, into what I want to believe. I started believing after I had the spiritual awakening, and I went into more of back into sort of like a Christianity type of belief, Then I realized I had sort of like a near-death experience when I was very sick. I had a very bad eczema problem, and I was very sick, and I felt like I'm dying from, it's the doctors put me on all these medications, and it wasn't working, and I had eczema all over my body, so it was very serious. And then my spiritual awakening, well, the second one, the near-death experience is when I went into this white room, but I'm kind of dying limitation. And since then, the last 6, 7, 8 years of my life, it's been, all the spiritual journey to where I am now and, letting go of negative beliefs in my life and integrating all these things back into my core vibration. Yeah, so that's my story in a short
Interesting.
nutshell.
Yes, I never knew that about your near-death experience, actually. That's really
Yes,
profound.
yes,
And
and
it's
then
interesting you said about like really questioning why you believe certain things. At the end of the day, that's what all of this is, right? Just a series of beliefs that we have that are kind of perpetuating in our minds and projecting out into our reality, I feel, isn't it?
exactly, exactly, and that was really. Then I realized that the belief of that. Then the universe showed me that there's so much more to that, because I know that still a lot of spiritual people who have near-death experiences, they still have when they're the near-death experience, they will see angels or they might see Jesus. It depends on their belief system as well. But ultimately, I think that we are, and ever since then, my life changed so much and I manifested so many things in my life. And, I learned so much. And, I just want to have this podcast to give other people a voice so we can hear each other and build each other up to have this society and that will grow the whole world into a better world. Like we are there for each other as human beings, and it must be based on love. And I think all this old system will fall away. It's going to be different systems that's going to be in this world in 50 or 100 years time that will serve us much better.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's almost like another aspect of our consciousness that's just, that we've reintegrated back and stopped, or kind of, it's not like as fragmented anymore as what it used to be, and it's now a whole. And I think as those old belief systems also are dying off, we're seeing that in reality, there's old systems also shifting to newer, more whole, more united. Systems where people are also more loving, they're showing up in different ways, and they're more understanding, more compassionate, more self-assured. And I think that's also the era that you're stepping in, Judith. I think that's so inspiring to hear your story. And I feel really resonant with that, even though I haven't had any near-death experiences. There have been phases in my life where I've gone through almost like a metaphysical death, so not like a um, it's almost like a piece of you that's dying off, because these thought forms that aren't really serving you anymore, they all have their seasons, and there's a time where they serve you. Obviously, maybe in childhood you had to hold on to those belief systems because they kept you alive, they kept you in survival. They reinforced your view on reality, they reinforced your identity, and they served a purpose. But I think when you grow up and you're autonomous to a certain degree, and you now have the ability to make your own choices, and you have the freedom in your life to do what you like and create what you like and bring amazing things into the world, we're still dictated by those belief systems, and they kind of hold us in shackles and really hold us back from our potential. And I think those experiences, like the one you talked about your near-death experience, or anything really, like whether it's you're in lots of debt, whether you're going through really painful heartbreak, it could be any kind of traumatizing or any kind of experience that brings out those wounds. I think it really pushes you into that place of questioning those belief systems that hold kind of that fence you in life, that put you into kind of a confinement. And it's really interesting, I think, when we start to face those shadows and see like what it is that's really pulling a veil over the magic of reality, like seeing that for what it is and seeing what it can offer us.
I
So
think
yeah,
yes. Yeah, sorry
yeah.
to interrupt you. I just want to mention one thing. For me, one of my biggest challenges is that I always wanted to be accepted in a way. Like you don't want to be the weirdo that's gonna now in your community believes in something else, I don't mean it in a bad way, but you know what I'm saying? Like even when I was younger, you have a much bigger perception and you feel a lot more things. And then now all of a sudden, like even in South Africa where I am now, there's a lot of Christian beliefs. There's not many people that's they anchored into that belief to them.
That's actually a very amazing point that you brought up, because it is that it's, again, it goes back to those childhood narratives that we have needing to be accepted, because we needed that as children. We're codependent, but we're adults now, and we don't need that dependency so much anymore. So it's questioning why are we seeking that acceptance from other people? Why do we need that? And there is quite a bit of fear involved in there. And I think it's important to also be able to look at these things without shaming ourselves and without condemning or judging ourselves for that. Which I think is the hardest part, because when you're really shaming yourself for feeling the way you feel, that's what really perpetuates the emotions as well. So it's this stuff is really interesting. Honestly, I've been really really immersed in this world of emotions and thoughts and how they interplay with our reality. And you're right, in Turkey, like it has been quite challenging since I was a kid, actually, because I haven't grown up in Turkey. My whole family is in Turkey. Our family and our kind of close and amongst my closer relatives, like our family was the only one that was outside of Turkey, and my whole childhood was um, outside of Turkey in a different culture. I grew up in quite a multicultural environment. I went to an American school, but I was in the UAE, so it was. I think I really just grew up in a very diverse environment, like culturally speaking. So when I came back to Turkey, everything was more black and white than what I was experiencing, what I was used to on my day to day, and I would find it quite challenging to fit in. And I remember very clearly, like there were times in my childhood whenever I came back to Turkey, like I would remember bending over backwards, really like thwarting my self-image and trying on these different identities just to be able to feel like I can connect with people. Um, and while that did serve a purpose when I was little, I think when I grew up, it became a limiting belief, as we
Exactly.
say.
Limiting.
And at that point, like when it comes to that point, I think it also becomes very automatic. Like you almost don't think about these things when you're doing them. So when you start to recognize that you feel certain ways, like that you feel anxious or that you feel depressed and you don't know why, I think it's really important to sit with those emotions sometimes and to be able to really understand how they feel in your body and what they're trying to tell you, what they're trying to draw your attention back to. And that's how you can start to peel back at the layers of what's conditioning your mind that's really limiting you. Um, and I'm wondering also, Judith, by the way, my curiosity, but you said like you manifested some amazing things like when you started to have these awakening experience. I'm wondering what some of those things are look like for you.
First, it was a little bit challenging. It started off after I had this experience with the near-death experience when I was very sick. It started actually, my eczema started after my daughter was born, and it just got worse and worse. And the doctors would prescribe a lot of cortisone and everything, and that made my body, it hated it, that now I'm giving it all this. It totally messed up my whole hormone system and everything. So that's when I had that near that experience when I decided I'm going to go off of these medications and, I will try to do the natural healing. And then it started with being really, the near that experience. And then I started getting better and better as I ate healthy food and I ate organic and I tried to order things from organic farms and things. That was about, I would say about 12 years ago, probably. After this whole experience, and I was still married to my first husband, my marriage also started crumbling, so it didn't really work anymore, so we got divorced. That was 9 years ago. And then I was really searching for many years. I was kind of single and in small relationships and everything and learning about myself, and it was like a short relationships, trying to find the right guy for me, someone who can really who loves me for who I am, that I can be myself, I don't have to now fall into this form, this pre-created form, or this you can just be yourself and that other person accepts you. And, it's not going to be this issue that I believe in more the metaphysical, universe and, like we create our own reality and the manifesting of our lives and everything. And then I actually worked a lot on myself. So I had a lot of negative or low frequency beliefs or negative beliefs that I had to let go of, So I was questioning myself all the time, and looking at certain things I had to let go of. And then I realized that I didn't manifest the right partner because I wasn't the right partner. So it took me many years to just be who I am, because the thing is, how can you expect a guy to, or a partner, somebody else that come into your life, if what are you giving? What are you giving in that relationship? You want all this from the other person, but what are you gonna give? And are you only gonna be happy if you have that other person? You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of questions that come up. And then, once I just settled down in myself, and I realized that, I worked a lot on myself, and I had like manifestation boards, like taking photos of couples that are really happy, like walking on the beach. And I put it on this photo collage, for me. And I said, okay, I want these things in my relationship, but it wasn't like 100 things that the guy must be rich, or the guy must be 6 feet tall, or whatever these weird things that I wanted. It was more about the main important things, like love, and the person must accept me for who I am, and the most important things. And then it took a while, but I did manifest. I'm married again now for almost, it's 5.5 years now we've been married. And we met 6 years ago. So after 6 months of meeting, we got married because we were just so happy, and we knew, after the third date, I knew this is the person for me. And I
Yeah.
manifested that. Yeah. So it took a while for the manifesting to happen, even if I started like a year before already trying to manifest the right person, but it took a while. And then eventually, I learned a lot along the way as well. And then my current husband came into my world, and that was it. And I'm very happy to be married to him, even after all these years. And he does his own thing, and he's got his own things that he loves in like sports. He loves watching sports, but he's not like me when it comes to the belief of, like, I believe in aliens or extraterrestrials, and he doesn't really believe in that. He said he will believe in it when he sees it. So, but the thing is, I'm not forcing my things on him. So he lets me be for who I am, and he can also be for who he is. And if there's a good sport match on, and I will also enjoy it with him, because I also enjoy watching rugby, especially South African rugby, team. And then I will watch it with him. So it's all about compromising, and you don't want to change the other person. So I'm very happy that he lets me be for who I am. Sorry for the long story short, you asked me. And then I'm here today, after all this, and we know each other from the raw vegan community. So that's another thing. And then eventually we came to this point where I started this podcast now.
Yeah. I actually, that's so funny, Judith. I actually feel like a mini Judith right now. When you were describing your story, it's funny how you said you experience like being able to be who you are because you accept the person for who they are. And it's just an externalization of your own acceptance that you feel within you. And that's something that I've been feeling with my mom as well recently. My mother and I, we've had quite an interesting relationship since I was little. I've had, when I was young, I actually developed like an obsessive it's a clinical diagnosis under the umbrella of OCD, obsessive compulsive
Yes.
disorder, really controlling of the other person and how they're acting and what they're doing because you're really disgruntled by certain noises that they're making. And for me, it was particularly like chewing noises, and when she would pray, like when she professes Islam, so she's Muslim, and she prays like 5 times a day. And when she prays, there's like this noise that her mouth makes, and it's just so random. And every time I would hear it, I would feel like really immense rage, and I wouldn't understand why. And then I would feel guilty and ashamed of myself for feeling such like a magnitude of rage. mother, like the person that's, that's helping me grow up and taking care of me and, showing me all this love. And it would make me feel really, really bad. And I realized, like, now I'm realizing now through doing all of this work and this, this inner contemplation, I'm realizing like it's just because at some point in my life, I really believed that I wasn't free to be who I was. And so I felt this need to compromise from the freedom of other people around me. And I think it hints back to a lot of, different things, different, like the dynamic of my relationship with my mom. And for the first time in my life, I'm really being able to, without judgment, like really observe and really understand why I'm feeling certain things and what narratives are going on there and what belief systems I need to change to be able to experience a harmonious relationship with my mother. And I've Mind you, I've gone to many psychologists, many psychiatrists. I've even used medication for this, and none of them really did anything. But some of them kind of pushed me into this place of they call exposure therapy, where you're really just exposing yourself to the trigger. But it never really encouraged me to understand the root cause of why I was feeling what I was. It was just kind of like, okay, well, you have this problem. The only way to fix the problem is to go on top of the problem and just really push yourself to come to acceptance with it, which is true, but you need to understand some things. Like you need to be able to understand why you're feeling the ways that you are. And now I think the new story that I'm telling myself that is more aligned with, kind of like a harmonious, a blissful relationship with my mom and with everyone around me, my whole environment is I'm liberating myself from the things that are really keeping me trapped. And so you can be free too. I don't need to control you. You can be who you are because I can be who I am. It was just a matter of realizing that the liberation that you embody within yourself, like the extent to which you allow yourself to be who you are, how much you embody your authenticity, regardless of what anyone else is expecting of you, whether that's your parents, like after you reach a certain age, whether that's your parents, your family members, your friends, allowing yourself to be who you are really is that I think it's also a service to the people around you, even if in some moments they might not like agree with who you're being. As long as it's authentic to you, you're also allowing other people to show up authentically. And I think it's in our authentic expression that we can really bring heaven to earth and really manifest our deepest desires that we yearn for and really view reality, like meet life as it is, so to speak. Like we don't need to bend out of shape or hold a facade, which is really like what drains our energy, what keeps us in this egoic mindset of I need to be someone that I'm not to be able to be accepted. But it's really quite the opposite. Like that belief system is really counterintuitive as it is, that you need to become someone that you're not. Because you hold people up to that standard, whether you realize it or not. You expect them to be someone they're not by holding that expectation yourself, which is maybe why you were also experiencing the things that you did in your previous relationships, and why now, since you've been able to liberate yourself from that belief system, you're experiencing a different level of harmony in your relationship, which is such a beautiful thing. And it's so commendable and applaudable to recognize that you've grown in that way as well.
Yes, and you're totally right. And you know what, now that I'm thinking about, I also struggle with a bit of OCD, and I think maybe there's a common pattern here. Maybe the fact is that maybe let's say your life path is to be yourself as much as you can, obviously, and also let to be brave enough to show the world who you are, and to live the life that you're supposed to live, like what you believe in, and maybe we're supposed to not let other people, we shouldn't worry about what other people think about us, You know what I'm saying? Like we must be ourselves. And maybe the idea is that these people are mirroring to us what we believe about ourselves. Maybe your
Yeah.
mom is actually obviously just a mirror in your reality, mirroring you back all the things that you feel annoyed about yourself and you can't accept about yourself, maybe. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. That's all it
Yeah.
is. That's
So
all.
so it's the same with me. Like I'm actually always had a bit of OCD. Like I've got, I always check the door twice. I can't sleep if the all the cupboards doors are not closed. It's like stupid stuff like that. Or, I'm like everything has to be neat and like and then funny enough, my daughter is totally the opposite. She's a total slob, but she's so extremely intelligent. So I always had this thing, you have to have I tell her, no, have a clear desk to study, have a clear room, clean room to study and do well. But I mean, she's getting such good marks like 90s in school, but she's a total slob. So that theory went out the window. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I also exactly. So maybe the realization in your life right now is that you can be who you are and accept that part in you, even if it's not perfect. You see maybe that part in you, and then your mom's reflecting those things about the noises she makes, and maybe that's the reason why you are around them right now, because you have to now let go of this belief. And once you let go of it, you will be able to maybe um, like you said, you went to Costa Rica and you experienced that part of your life, and that was also great. But I feel like my parents live close to us as well, and I still have a lot of things about them that irritate me as well. And my husband always says, let's go and visit them and do stuff. And sometimes I feel like he's the one that's pushing me sometimes, because I feel like a lot of times when I'm at their house they trigger me a lot. And then I'm like feeling like, why did they say that? And I have to think, okay, maybe it's something to do with me. And then it's actually a lot of things I let go of, a lot of negative things I let go of inside me that's to do with them. So I have a similar experience to you, but maybe it's not as specific. It's specific to certain situations, and you have the specific things with your mom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting, like these triggers, these moments that we feel resistant to the people or the circumstances, the situations, the things, even like if the door is unlocked, for example, like from the example that you were giving, like um sometimes it just takes that step towards asking why these things make us feel the way they do, rather than asking why did they do that or why is this like that. Like and really bringing that focus on what you can control rather than what's outside of your locus of control, I feel. And that's when you really take the power back into your own hands, because where you can really focus on where you're responsible, where you have the reins, and you're kind of allowing things to go waywards without even recognizing. Um, that's when you bring your consciousness onto that, when you bring your awareness onto that, that's when you have the power to shift it, I feel. And that's when you have the power to let go of things. And I think that's something I've been questioning, because I'm, by the way, same, like me and my parents, like my family home, it's been a struggle for me as well, because when I was a teenager, like when I was growing up, I never really felt that acceptance. And it wasn't necessarily because no one was accepting me. It was just because I was interpreting situations and to be in that way. Um, I don't think in objective reality, when we are able to see things for what they are truly, there is no denial of who you are. There is no like lovelessness. There is no, you're not worthy, you're not prosperous, you don't deserve the things that you want in life. There isn't, we deserve everything that we can truly want and want to be in life. But I think it's just these layers of conditioning, and that when I was a teenager, like that was what was kind of probing me in the direction of, okay, I want to run away from home. I don't feel accepted here. My parents trigger me. My brother triggers me. Like I want to go somewhere where I feel accepted. But if you can't find that acceptance at home with the people that have brought you up, with people that you grew up with, maybe there are some exceptional situations where, there was abuse or, things involved that are a bit, different in a way, in some ways. But I think fundamentally, like we really need to acknowledge what we're believing that is making us think that we're not acceptable where we are. And even if people don't accept us, like why does that have a hold over us? Why is that making us think certain
But
things,
why is
feel
it
certain?
important to us for others to accept us? I mean, I've been also asking the same question. Why is that so important to me? Why, I mean,
Yeah.
is it because we're scared to be alone? We think that if people accept us, what's the worst case scenario? Is it because if nobody accepts us, then we're alone, then we don't have anybody around us? Is that what it is? We're scared to be alone, or what is it? I'm just been thinking about this.
Yeah, I think it's a good question to think about. I think it brings our attention back to like, where did this even come from? Because I I have a theory that every fear that we have really stems from a fear of death, even if it seems
Mm.
irrelevant, like the fear of me hearing certain noises that my mom makes, for example. It really stems from fear of death. And why does it stem from a fear of death? Because again, like those fears really serve a purpose at some point. When we were little, if we're not accepted, when you're a baby, if no one likes you, if you're something that nobody wants, you're left to die. Like if you're not accepted in society, society is all that's holding you, that's keeping you alive because you depend on the people around you. But you're at an age right now, I'm at an age right now, we're at an age right now, if you're listening to this, perhaps maybe not, but the majority of people that are listening to this, we're at an age right now where we can take care of ourselves. We don't have to rely on people to stay alive, We don't necessarily have to be accepted where we are. And like even if that can lead to some periods of isolation. I think by embodying who we truly are, we also allow for we allow for something I can think of as personal magnetism. Like the more you embody who you want to become, like unapologetically, that is when you also start to attract the people, like even though that's not the sole focus, that's when you also start to attract the people that are resonating with that. Just like how you and I connect. Like we didn't go out of our way to find these connections, right? They found us as a result of us embodying who we want to become. And that's why like perhaps when I talk about certain things, you can resonate with them, or when you talk about certain things, I can resonate with them, relate with them, and talk on them. So I think it's really important that we question these things, like why do we have these fears? Why is it like, and there can be people out there that do give us answers. There's a lot of gurus out there, of course, for good reason. But I think the most empowering realizations come when we arrive at them ourselves. So it's really good that we start to have these questions. We start to question these things in life, I feel. Maybe that's a
Yes,
certain way
no.
to know.
Sorry?
Maybe that's one way to look at it.
Yes. Yes, no, you're right. And what I wanted to say is what you're saying is really, really true, because we have to get to the bottom of that belief, Why are you believing in that? What are you believing about yourself, that makes you think that about for example, for your mom, of your mom, what is that belief deep down, like you said? And for me, it's also why do I have to control everything? Like I have to control everything around me. It must be perfectly neat and everything. And why can't I just let that cup stand there, next to my bedside table, or why is that a problem? You know what I'm saying? And And it's such a, like you said, the gurus can only guide you, other people can guide you to that belief or that understanding. But the true thing is when you see it in yourself, then you can let it go. Then it won't be a challenge in your life anymore because you found the root cause of that, then you can let it go. Then you realize it's nonsensical, what you believe, about yourself. Because ultimately, I think everything is about us. That's what's holding us back, all these negative beliefs that we either feel shame or fear or some kind of other negative beliefs about ourselves. And if we can just realize that it's not true, then we can let it go because then we realize that that's not what we need in our life. We want it gone, because we want to raise our core frequency.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's all it is. It's just a series of stories that we're telling ourselves about
Mm.
ourselves, about how the world works, about how other people are. And once we start to shift those stories is when the magic happens. And I find that also maybe sometimes it's not as easy to identify the stories as much as it is to identify when you're not feeling good. So I can definitely tell when I'm feeling angry. Sorry, because rage for me is the prominent emotion I feel in my body when I hear certain noises, for example, or when I have the implications of this obsessive thinking that manifests in my body as fear. Like I can really feel it. It's unmissable. Like I can really feel that rage. And when you're really feeling such an emotion where you feel like you're really thrown off your balance, like you're not feeling at peace, like that's an opportunity for you. Well, I think it's also important that first of all, that's where I was stuck for years is like shaming myself for feeling anger. I shouldn't feel anger. Like
Because she's your
it's
mom, she gave you birth, she pushed you out of her body, and how can you feel that towards someone that loves you so much, it's such a, no, you're right, I
those
understand.
exactly what you said. Those are other narratives. Like I shouldn't feel fear because this person is my mother. They gave birth to me. Like those are other. I'm like the idea isn't for you to be an asshole at the end of the day, my friend. But the idea is for you to be able to recollect your sovereignty, recollect your power just enough to be able to see that you don't have to be dictated by these belief systems. Like loving the people around you is not an act of sacrificing from your own self-worth and own love and own ability to feel who you are and all these emotions within you. It's an act of being able to love yourself so fully that you're, as a byproduct of that, love is overflowing and you're able to pour it into other people effortlessly. Like it shouldn't feel like something that you force, you know what I mean? So I think it's yeah, you can really draw back to like what those stories are, what those narratives are that are really putting you into a confinement and really dictating you and your reality where you're not really able to have so much fun in life, like be a child and really just experience life and meet life for, as it is. Um, like you can really be able to tell what those stories are by the emotions that you feel. So what is it like, and not for you to answer right now, but I think it might be a good kind of probing question for you or for anyone that's watching this that's dealing with certain like limiting beliefs or obsessive thinking per se. Like what is it that's making you feel, when things aren't the way
Mm.
that you exactly want them to be. You don't necessarily have to go out of your way and try to control it physically, but you can really investigate, like become curious about what that's making you feel and why, and allow yourself to feel it. Because I think in allowing ourselves to feel the emotions that we're feeling, that's when we open that door.
Oh,
That's what we
no.
That's when we can open the door to realizing like what the narratives are that are limiting us. It's really interesting, I feel. It's all of these elements are within us. Like it's sometimes we forget. We become a little more human than we would like. I like
Yeah,
to
I
think of it.
mean,
But
We
yeah,
want to be all spiritual and everything, but at the end of the day, we still have all these negative things in us that we have to let go of.
yeah, which is okay. Like I think that's
Mm.
what we came here to do.
No,
Like
you're
it's
right.
also so amazing to realize like when you look back, I don't know, Judith, I'm sure you can relate to this. Having been someone that's manifested some amazing things in your life, that's overcame so many limiting beliefs, like when you look back on your life, like you can really see how much you've evolved, right? And
Mm.
that's so even though at some point you were dictated by some limiting beliefs or you were like really maybe in some undesirable places where you feel there was a lot of pain involved,
Mm.
maybe you're XYZ, like when you look back, like it becomes kind of worth it when you have those profound realizations and all the wisdom that you walked away with. It's just like, wow, I wouldn't really change it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on that, and what we find every time we do that is more of ourselves. So there's not another person that you find. It's just you find more of yourself, which is great, in becoming more of yourself, and yeah, it is, it's just life is so much fun, and it doesn't have to be this drama and this fear and everything, and the more I realize it, the more I think, it's just a game, but it sometimes feels so serious, but we just want sometimes to just feel like it's everything just working out for us and it's a game. And I think we're taking it too seriously life sometimes. That's how I feel sometimes. I'm just so in it, that every day is you're doing every day these things, and then we must sometimes stop and question ourselves, like slow down. And I know you've done a lot of self-examining the last couple of years as well. You've been doing that, and the healthy eating is part of it, to clear out all the things in you that wasn't pure and to heal yourself and everything. But at the end of the day, what are we doing in this life? What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What
Yeah.
are we trying to become that we're already not?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So right. Yeah, it's funny. Like I find myself sometimes in that like I catch glimpses where I'm just kind of like being way too serious or whatever. Like it's just like taking something way too seriously where it's throwing me off balance and I'm really disgruntled or everything just kind of needs to be a certain way for me to be happy. But it's just like just why life can just be fun as it is. Like we can come here and we can embrace everything as it is right now and just be whatever we want. Regardless
Exactly.
of what anyone's gonna say and what like people are gonna judge you for. I found a channel on YouTube. I think it was called True Self Alchemy. Her name is Danielle Lynn. Oh my gosh, I love this channel. This lady lives in the forest and she shows up like in every single video. And she's just like this different character. She's either wearing like antlers or she's wearing like a mustache or she just shows up in whatever way she thinks is like she just wants to, honestly. Like it's inspiring how much she embodies her authenticity, which is really like I think it's just so liberating because like you really throw out all of those beliefs of what other people are gonna say or do or think or it's just so what? Like they can say what they want and it doesn't have a say over who you are, really, because you are who you are, like you are who you want to be at the end of the day, which is what's important. It's maybe that those are just reflections of their own limiting beliefs, like what they have to say about you, which is a
Exactly.
good reminder for you as well.
And remember, maybe people will even like you even more if you're yourself. Have you ever thought about that? You know?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
people like me more if I'm more myself. What I believe in, not limit myself. And maybe I will have people in my life that I never thought of having in my life that will come into my life that will make me even more happy. So you never
yeah.
know.
That's the personal magnetism. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
no,
byproduct of you doing and being what you love. Yeah,
no, you're right. No, that's great. No, I think today is really a profound session. It's really helped me so much already. I can feel it like in myself, like in my gut, like whoa. Like I really came to realization to a lot of things actually while we talked about these things. That what really got me is what you said about that it's all about the death, that we're afraid of dying. And I think all of our, these issues that we talked about maybe stem from me, for me as well, because I don't have the exact same issue with your mom, but I also have, my mom triggers me all the time, and it's also annoying me so much. It's annoys the beep beep out of me, because it's like she does things that are really annoying. And then I think it's got to do with almost like, now that you mentioned the death thing, it just came to me. I wanted to mention that, when you're a baby, then or a child, like up to 18, or while you're staying with your parents, you depend on them. So what happens is for your survival, you depend on them to feed you, to take you to school, to buy you clothes and everything. So it's almost like a survival instinct of a small child. So they don't have a thought of their own, like their beliefs of their own. So we have to live, I know, almost like copy and live what our parents believe. So
Mm.
we don't have our own thoughts. Only when you start become a bit older, then you realize, oh, but I don't believe that. I don't want to believe it that way, but I'm still staying with my parents. I can't go against them because they'll kick me out. So who's going to look after me? Again, the survival instinct. I don't have a job. I don't have any money. When, let's say when you're 16 and you start having more of a rebellious thoughts, or whatever age you're at, it doesn't have to be 16. It can be, I'm sure that our audience can relate to our thinking, what we say. And yeah, and then you kind of yeah, I'm trying to get my thoughts back now, what I was talking about. And then, when my rebellious stage was actually at university, when I was at first year university, oh my word, it was the worst. Like I've been this goody two shoes in high school. I didn't have one drink, nothing. I go to university first year. I promise you, I was drunk like so many times. I promise you, I was crawling on the floor, and I don't know, I just went like totally opposite, to you.
I swear to you, that was the same for me, first year of my university as well. How synchronistic. Literally the same. All of high school,
Yeah,
I was like the bookworm, studying, the good
yeah,
student. I got top grades, and then high school,
yeah,
or sorry, university comes along. First year, I'm like, I'm out of my family home. I live in the dorms now. Like, I can do and be whatever I want. And all of that just purged, and I was a wreck. I was like a hot mess. Yeah, I can feel that.
yeah. So it's definitely, I think you totally was spot on about that belief. I think it definitely comes from that survival thing when you're a child, and somehow maybe we need to stop thinking about that we're still a child inside. We are our own people now, and we don't need our parents' acceptance in a way, but subconsciously we still do in a way, because of almost like that survival thing, because maybe our body or our mind doesn't realize that we grown up now. I mean, I'm 45 now, but I still have the same feelings I had when I was 16 sometimes when I'm around my parents. So it's
Yeah.
very interesting, and I don't believe a lot of people just ignore their parents and don't see them for 10 years. I don't believe that, because 10 years later, you're still going to have that issue. You haven't resolved that negative belief, that limiting belief. You must
Yeah.
face it and figure out what it is now so you can move on as a person.
So you can manage the triggers a little bit. Like I had my ways of managing my they call it misophonia, by the way, the OCD pres-
Excuse me?
diagnosis.
Your
They call it
diagnosis.
the diagnosis, yeah. But I had my ways of managing that trigger. I would, for example, close the doors. I would not sit with my parents at the dinner table, but it's like, how is that affecting your life? You know? Um, and it's really a choice. Oh, I'm running out of time as well. Okay.
Okay.
Zoom is really I
Okay.
think the last thing I'll say is like,
Yeah.
um, you don't have to go on top of every single trigger, but I think it's just I think if this video has found you and there's something at the forefront of your mind that's really like bothering you and that you find that you're at a painful place in your life and you're really wanting to get out of it, maybe it's just worth questioning. And there's a quote that goes, "Stars rule men, but a wise man will rule the stars." So I think that's really analogous to these beliefs that we have as well. Is like, how much are you allowing the stories that you internalized at some point in your life when you needed them, when you needed to? How much are you allowing them to dictate who you are now and what you're doing now with your life and what they're saying about you and what, you know, just like what you're creating in your life right now. So yeah, it's good that we can question these things and yeah. I felt the same as you. It's like the moment, it's the shadow work, you know, the moment you go on top of these triggers and you realize like, oh wait, what? That's what I was believing my whole life, and that's why I was like in this place of suffering. Like it's just so freeing and it's so refreshing also. It feels so good, like to be able to come to that realization. Yeah, I agree with you.
That's
I agree with you.
awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing your story. And it's been really liberating, like I said before. And thanks for probably helping many people that watch this, and also me as well, personally. And yes, we're definitely gonna have the next session soon.
Guys, the pleasure is mine. Judith, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for sharing your story. I was personally really inspired by, especially hearing about your near-death experience.
Uh,
That is
thank you.
amazingly crazy.
I
Yeah, I love
know,
it.
I know. I just, I always think sometimes, I wish I would have like a more colorful, spiritual, like, you don't want to be alone in that white room. You would expect maybe some spirit guides, like some people have, like near-death experience. But then I had that raw realization that I'm part of the whole God, like a piece of God, like the God consciousness. And I think maybe that's what I was supposed to see.
Yeah, and that's what I feel as well. Is like a lot of times. Okay, last thing, last thing I'll say is like a lot of times, like we look for these outer figures, outer entities to guide us. And yeah, maybe to an extent they are, but it's also like I find myself sometimes like sending messages and sending little affirmative, kind of like, probing my past self a little bit. Even though that might sound weird to some people, like send some little encouragement, energetically speaking, for her to go on, for her to do what she's doing, for her to persist, because there were times where it was discouraging. And when I think when I think about that now, it's like, what if there's some future version of me, my higher self? What if my highest self right now is guiding me? And what if it's like sending me, what if what I call my guides, what I call my, some, spiritual figures outside of what I think are outside of me? What if it's just me playing some other kind of role in another dimension, another, time space reality? And I think quantum insights, your name in that sense is really also, it's really resonating with me. Like it's just,
Yes, but
yeah.
thank you so much. Now it makes sense what you said. I totally agree with you about that. Sometimes you can prompt your, like, I think what happens is a lot of people say, you can go and send messages to your future self, or not send messages to your future self. You pull that down to you to see, what you can be, and you have a future self that already achieved that, and then you're getting inspiration from that future self of yours, that version of the reality to have in your life right now. But I think, like you said, it must go the other way as well. Like we must also, the other day I also thought about myself, let's say 6 months ago, and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm so glad that it almost feels like I made that connection with my past self as well, like you said. No, that's
Yeah.
amazing. No, you're right. But yeah, thank you so much and have an awesome day. And yes, thank you again for this. And we'll definitely have another session and talk about even more interesting things that will come up. in our
Absolutely.
session.
Thank you.
Thank
Carry on.
you. Thanks.